probably be reheating a few times is that there is so much, especially in modern gaming, where a lot of sequels will be coming out and people will accuse them of not changing things enough. And yet it seems like most of the time when a company tries to do something a little different, or sometimes in Dragon Quarter's case, a lot different, it's not well received. So it makes you understand at least a little bit of why companies are afraid to stray too far away from their source material.
This is something that was evidenced on Diablo 3 as well, which was a recent release. A lot of people were really, really excited for the game, and then it came out, and the forums were just blazing with hate and Fire J. Wilson and all kinds of just, it was terrible. It's just that they thought they were going to get a slightly better version of Diablo 2 instead of an actual sequel that took the game in a different direction. And people didn't like it.
I think we're about to witness the same thing with the Devil May Cry series with their recent reboot that we've still only seen trailers of so far. The game's not launched, so it's kind of hard to say one way or the other if it's going to live up to what Capcom's hoping it will. And you could almost say this exact same thing about the Metal Gear Rising.
I unfortunately never played the Metal Gear series.
The only one I ever played all the way through was the first and second one. I did beat Snake Eater. I didn't play any of the rest of them all the way through. Metal Gear Solid 4, none of the PSP games. I didn't even play any of the PSP games at all. But I do own Metal Gear Solid 4, and I couldn't sit through the long cutscenes.
If you wanted to watch a movie, you'd rent a movie?
Yeah, something like that.
I'd actually rented Metal Gear back in the early Nintendo days. And there's been a lot of changes since then. I couldn't really get into it, but it was a complicated game for somebody that was my age at the time. And Snake's Revenge, I don't remember ever actually playing it. And according to what I've heard about Konami and Hideo Kojima's history, they would rather you forget about it too. But Metal Gear Solid, the first one, it kind of changed everything. In-game cinematics started happening a lot more because of that game. And a lot of people started putting more polish into their music and their voice acting.
It was really good for voice acting, I'll give it that. That was some pretty good voice acting. It was the first time that you could actually listen to the characters talk and you didn't feel like taking a cheese grater to your ears.
David Hayter's voice certainly became rather popular, especially when you consider how talented that fella is. He played in the live-action Guyver movies, at least the first two, turned around, did the voice acting, and then turned around and co-wrote stuff like The Watchmen and the first X-Men movies. He's a crazy fella, but that's a totally different topic.
I didn't realize he had done The Watchmen and the X-Men movies. I guess I just never put those two pieces together.
You wouldn't expect him to be a writer. So, not only has it been sequels, but out-and-out remakes. Bionic Commando probably had some of the more famous ones because it almost side-by-side, it had the Bionic Commando, I guess you'd call it sequel, and then it had the Rearmed, which was a reimagining of the NES version of the game. And then you have games like Splatterhouse that also had a remake recently, which bombed horribly. And the much, much more recent, as of, I think, last Tuesday, Double Dragon Neon, which was more or less a remake of the original Double Dragon, just done in a very crazy, very 80s heavy nod. It kind of reminds me almost to the likes of Scott Pilgrim. It knows it's a video game. It knows it's from the 80s, and so it lets you know it too. The music on it is just fantastically hilarious, especially since I found out that Jake Vert Kaufman did the music for it. He's somebody that's been on OCR for years, and more people will probably recognize him from doing the music for Contra 4. He's made quite a name for himself, and now he's pretty much the way forward musician, which makes me want to try a lot more way forward games.
They're actually making the Adventure Time video game that's going to be out in October.
Mm-hmm. And I would not be at all surprised if he did the music for that too, so be looking for that.
I will definitely keep my eye out. I would like to bring up my favorite remake, or one of the two of my favorites, and that is Mega Man Powered Up and Mega Man Maverick Hunter X. Those were both awesome games, and shame on people for not buying them. Because now we may never see a Mega Man Powered Up 2, a remake of one of the best Mega Man games.
It sold reasonably well, though, didn't it?
It did well enough.
It was almost a launch title.
Well, it did well enough that they repackaged it, but it went down in price really fast. One of the only other games that I've ever seen drop in price that fast was Brutal Legend. That one went down in price really fast as well. And I paid full price for mine because I buy Mega Man games on launch, and just a few months later I saw it for like $15 at a bargain bin. They just couldn't get rid of their copies. It did get a re-release. They dual packed it, and I think it might have only been a GameStop thing, but it got dual packed with Mega Man Powered Up and X Hunter, both in the same package, and I have that as well.
Well, since you mentioned Mega Man, there are certain series in gaming lore that have had ridiculous amounts of sequels and spin-offs. And I think I could name the biggest, I don't know if I'd want to call them offenders, because it's not necessarily a bad thing, in the mind's eye, I suppose. But, of course, Mario. And it's hard to exactly count how many sequels he's been in, because Mario and Sonic is another one, they're both in a series where their main series really didn't count beyond 4. And yet there are so many other series that were like prequels and sequels and spin-offs, and not to even touch the cameos.
Lots of cameos for both. Mega Man's been in a fair amount himself.
Well, that's the next one, Mega Man. He's in at least 57 plus games, including the classic, the Mega Man X, the Mega Man Zero, Mega Man ZX, Mega Man Legends, Mega Man Battle Network, Mega Man Star Force. This isn't even including his cameos in many, 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 many games. Not quite as many as Sonic and Mario, but still. He is Capcom. Okay. He was Capcom's mascot.
Was is the operative word.
Yeah. I'm not really joining the Capcom hate on that one, but I definitely see where Mega Man fans are coming from. They are getting kind of manhandled.
Iffy.
Yeah.
There's also, of course, Final Fantasy.
Oh, yes.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, where to even
Remake.
go with Final Fantasy?
Here we're up to 14 already, including the 2 online games, in the official numbers. And there's 12, almost 12 direct sequels. And then you have like 40 spin-offs, including the Chocobo and the Crystal Chronicles. And technically you can include Frontier Saga and the Seiken Densetsu, aka the Blank of Mana series, because they all started off, in the US at least, as Game Boy Final Fantasy titles.
Yes.
So
Final Fantasy Legends, right?
Yeah. Final Fantasy Adventures and Final Fantasy Legends. And then there's a couple others of special mention, like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, or as Japanese call it, Final Fantasy USA, because USA wasn't getting RPGs, so they thought they had to make a entry-level version for people to get into. And then you've got the 2 Dissidia games, and there's just so much Final Fantasy out there. I'm not even touching the phone games yet.
No, there is so much Final Fantasy that I can't even... We could spend an entire episode talking about Final Fantasy.
And we may at some point. Plus, its major cameos in games like Kingdom Hearts and this selectable characters in Urguys, and of course Itadaki Street, which has only recently become known in the US thanks to Fortune Street featuring the Mario characters. But Final Fantasy isn't the last of those major offenders. There's Dynasty Warriors.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah.
There are, including the original fighting game, there are now 7, I think it's just 7, there may be 8 now, but there's 7 of the Brawler series that we're all used to now. We've got the Samurai Warriors spin-off, we have the crossover Orochi Warriors, or Warriors Orochi, and then you've got stuff like Warriors Legends of Troy, you've got this new One Piece game, you've got 3 Gundam ones with its own expansion pack, you've got the Hakuto no Ken, or Fist of the North Star one that came out, I believe, just last year. Then you got ones like Dynasty Warriors Online and the Game Boy and DS versions and Mystic Heroes, and they all kind of stand on their own. They're not necessarily ports of the actual series. So they've got like 40 if you include all the expansion packs, thanks to, I know, expansion packs may be the wrong word for it, but Extreme Legends and Empires. Just about every one of the games in the series has at least one or the other, and some have both. That's a lot of games. And it's had a lot of knockoffs.
99 Nights.
Devil Kings, also known as Sengoku Basara.
I think we forgot a major series that was Sega's attempt to take on Final Fantasy at one point, the Phantasy Star series.
Ah, yes.
It definitely had a lot of sequels, but because the first game came and went, not a lot of people played it because it was on the Sega Master System. Mm-hmm. And then it really kicked off on the Genesis.
And as a person that played all of them, both Final Fantasy and Phantasy Star, they were actually a lot harder than the Final Fantasies. Mm-hmm. I remember number 2 being just incredibly hard. But then again, Final Fantasy 2 was also insanely hard as well. It just seemed like the prime time for both of the series.
I think they were also made with Japanese audiences in mind, and they were a lot more focused on their RPGs. Because Dragon Quest was a big deal in the late 80s and early 90s. People lined up like they were going to a Batman movie to buy their copy of Dragon Quest in those days, so everybody else was trying to capture that magic.
Unfortunately, I was still too young at that time and didn't learn Dragon Quest until about 5 years ago.
Well, we didn't get most of them.
That's right, we didn't.
I think we got the first 4.
The one I played was the one on, or even
8.
which one it was. 8?
I believe
Yeah,
that's
that's it. 8.
So yeah, 5, 6, and 7. We may have got 7. I think we got it as one of those end of the lifespan of one of the systems. Still, most of them, unless they've been re-released as a collection somewhere that I'm not aware of, as far as us getting actual copies of them, I'm not sure it's ever happened. But there's a lot of series with a lot of numbers attached to their titles. We were talking about Assassin's Creed just last week, how they are already up to so many games in such a short lifespan. And then you have Resident Evil, Mortal Kombat, Grand Theft Auto,
Street Fighter.
Magic. Street Fighter in a kind of weird way. It's one of those where the main series only counts to 4, yet when you take all the expansions and all the other games that they've been a part of, it's a much bigger number.
Street Fighter 2.
How many versions of that one was there?
At least a couple thousand.
And counting. We got
Yes,
HD
and counting.
remix.
Oh, but back to Phantasy Star real quick. Phantasy Star Online 2, January of next year.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I have a friend that's already got it on pre-order.
Wouldn't they be up to 4 now? Because Phantasy Star Online 3... Oh, Phantasy Star Universe.
Yep, it was Universe.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Phantasy Star Online 3 was that card game that I don't know anybody that enjoyed that one.
I never even got it. I wouldn't even give it 2 seconds.
Well, the graphics were actually kind of nice. They may have been a little dated for the time it came out, but it means nothing if your card game isn't solid.
I find it interesting that Final Fantasy Online did the exact same thing with a card game that was on there as well, that you could order separately, but it was still connected to Final Fantasy Online. It was actually the card game from Final Fantasy IX, if anybody remembers.
It was called like Triad or something like that, wasn't it?
Yes. The game was pretty fun. It was just everybody wished that they would have put it directly into Final Fantasy Online. That way, when you're bored and waiting to do stuff, everybody could play together. But no, you had to leave the game and play by yourself outside of the game.
Yeah,
Fantastic
I remember
idea.
it. Yeah, I played it a little bit, but not too much, because like you said, you had to leave the game, and I would rather play the game.
Exactly.
Do you know if it made a comeback for Final Fantasy XIV?
That I don't know.
I do know that 14 came out with an expansion recently. And I've never looked at 14.
It got a lot of bad press, and a lot of it was very deserved. It is the first time, I think, in history a game company has actually apologized sincerely for making a bad game.
Yeah, they knew they screwed up.
It went on sale at our local GameStop, I guess sometime last year, and there was collector's editions that people didn't pick up because they'd heard how bad the game was. And so they went on sale for like $25, and my girlfriend really liked the box, so she bought it. She never installed the game, she just wanted the box.
Well, actually, at one point, if you bought Final Fantasy XI and paid for a monthly subscription, you could play 14 for free.
Wow.
But now they released the expansion, and they got rid of that, thinking that they can get people to once again play 14, but I don't think it's going to work. I think nobody's fooled.
Yeah,
Maybe they
just wash their hands of that one.
They may have went back and tried to fix a lot of the things that were broken with it, but that's such a major undertaking.
Yeah, because everybody just wanted a modernized version of Final Fantasy XI. They wanted nothing to do with this modernized MMO that they wanted to create.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of what happened to EverQuest 2, only EverQuest 2 was actually a solid game.
Yes.
Nobody was really begging for a upgrade from EverQuest. I mean, the new graphics were nice and all, but it still had more people on the original than it did the sequel, and we may see the same thing happen if WoW ever ends up with its own sequel. There's going to be more people still tied to the game they know and love, rather than taking a risk on the new one. And the new one may tank because of that.
And I halfway wonder if that's why we don't know more about Project Titan, other than it's called Project Titan. I think they're afraid of taking away from World of Warcraft.
If a frog had wings, it wouldn't bump its ass a-hopping.